All right, what's up, y'all? This is like eye level, like for real. And not only that, but it's also slightly crooked. Welcome. In the Image Clothing Company. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of all four sides of us as a whole. And we are real and raw, as you can tell by, adjustments as we go. So today's the 22nd? Today's Earth Day. It's April 22nd, 2025. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this video, the fact that it's Earth Day. But yeah, there's four sides to us as a whole. We do a lot here. It applies to everybody, so stick around if you'd like to. Yeah, we'll talk about the hands, and I'll get into it. And the video is titled, Things Have to Fit in Our Hands. Okay, so we'll get into it when I do, meaning we have intros that we do here. I talk about all four sides of our company, and then I talk about where clothing sits, because this is one of the fourths. And I call this the main side of In the Image Clothing Company because this is where it all started. And our key word is always allowing the human body to work. It's just a mechanical machine. It was designed by God in his image. And yeah, it only will ever do what it does. Everything has a neutral as far as the joints in the body, and it needs to reside within that. There's a center line, the sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and the jaw as well, but it naturally stabilizes the entire body. And so we have to stay centered because gravity pulls us straight down. There's feet on either side of that center, opposing arches gripping inward. And we place clothing onto our bodies, and they're potentially very, very imbalanced just because of the design. And there's a lot more going on in modern day that just never happened in the past. Materials that are unnatural, that are new. Tags placed in clothing that didn't even happen just decades back from today's date, and then ever before then. So there's a lot going on that's just changing people's ability to even be a human being. So we talk about that here on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, as well as a lot of other things: eating, standing, sleeping, walking, hydration, naturally, okay? The only way the body will ever work, because there is only one way. And yeah, another fourth of us is In the Image Clothing Company podcast, where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. Put my hands up like this because don't shoot me, I'm just relaying truth, and it applies to everybody. So I get bold and blunt and raw and real, and sometimes it sounds like I'm about to rip someone's head off. There's a bee just hovering right here. So yeah, there's another fourth of us, which is In the Image Clothing Company music, where I'm a fingerstyle guitarist, and I show setups and sizings of guitars because of the fact that the body only works one way, to not alter the hands, because the hands are essentially the shoulders, as the feet are essentially the hips, and the body will only ever work all together. I'm just watching this bee fly around. It's like having a play and somebody doesn't show up for a part in it, and the play doesn't play out. That's how the human body is if any of it's not working correct. Compensation's trying to happen, and it just doesn't happen. So there's another fourth of us, which is In the Image Clothing Company dogs. And I personally, Evan Strong, will be having and breeding standard poodles. But the slogan for that side of the company is letting dogs stay natural. Unnatural materials in all dog accessories nowadays, potentially. Yeah, dehydrated foods, collars, leashes, harnesses, things placed onto dogs, imbalanced, and they're just a machine as well. They just have to continue to work the only way they ever will. So, cool. All right. Clothing for everybody: man, woman, tall, short, skinny, fat, any age, any part of the earth, any time period. You're the same thing as the other ones. Pants need to be entirely above the hips, so there's no restriction to the functionality of the pelvis, and slightly higher in the front than the rear for the angle. The core muscles are like every muscle within the body. They have to get shorter to work, meaning contract, which is the opposite direction of stretch within clothing, so we can never have that. The tops that we wear, we need to keep these seams on top of our shoulders evenly behind the little bones that are on the peaks, because our shoulders only ever work behind our head, and then ideally just right at the edges for the edge seams, because that's where the functionality of the joint is, okay? Button-ups naturally sit in a good location because they've got this double-stitched band of material. And it doesn't have to be double stitched on each stitch, but there's 2 stitches on each side of what I call the band of material. There's a single stitch on this specific one I'm wearing. So here's the thing. We have 2 things we call prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company. Conditional. There's not always ropes in shoes. We call those shoelaces as human beings. There's not always tags in clothing, but there's only one way to weave a rope across the top of the human foot and not alter the shape of the mechanics of it. That's what we call In The Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique. Found wherever you can find us, 5 words as a whole, In The Image Clothing Company. With that, we tie our shoes evenly over toward the center line of the human being that is there. Otherwise, you have rotation issues if you don't do it even throughout the entire body to the tip of your head and the tips of your fingers, which we're talking about in this, the hands of the human being. So tags within clothing, if they're placed there, they're either causing a physical gap that's changing the body's only workings, and or just not allowing the musculature to activate. And that can't be the case because of what we discussed, right? It all has to work together. Now, here's the thing. We live in a modern 2025 currently, and going forth is only going to get more worldly rather than natural, like the earth, right? So we have a lot of things that don't fit into our hands. We have what we call technological devices at this time period, and often just any products, even if they were natural of whatever it could be, people like to think that bigger is better. And well, your hands are only the size that your own personal hands are, and to keep our body in its only neutrals, right, the neutral wrist straight out from the pinky, we have to have things be able to fit in our hands. The hands are rounded, by the way, and we live in a modern world with a lot of flat things, and so that's a problem in itself. We need to have rounding to things, as we discussed. But yeah, because we discussed that a lot. I talked about how the hands, I call them quote-unquote hand arches. They correlate with the arches in our feet because the hands and the feet are basically the same thing. They're extremely similar in their operation, and they affect each other if one's altered. So, shoelacing technique, otherwise your hands just won't even work, and then you'll be not knowing how things can even fit inside them. But our hands have to close. The body needs to be closed. And it's a strange thing because we want to be open. We want to be able to have openness to us, right? And be a human being. And I made a video for the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, which is where we are now. And it was last fall over there. I'm looking at the location where I was standing when I did that. And I titled it Internal Rotation, which is this, right? Internal versus external. Internal rotation, coming closest to the human being's center line where its strength is a closed yet open position. Because closed at the extremities, like the hands in line, the only way they'll ever work, and the feet gripped arches, which meaning, you know, all the muscles are contracting and everything's getting close together and neutral with that pinky toe pointing forward as the pinky finger points forward, neutral, okay, internal. Yeah, so our hands need to be able to close. The human body, when we're standing, our hands should be kind of pretty closed, pretty relaxed, because otherwise the muscles aren't contracted, as I was saying with the feet arches, because that's what happens is when we contract muscles, like gripping something, you're closing your hand. And yeah, we often use things nowadays as human beings that are just so big they don't fit in our hands. And so our hands are just about never able to actually work. Yet, we've got things in them for hours a day sometimes. And so what then happens is other parts of the body are compensating. So you've got the shoulders trying to take over, and that doesn't work. And then you've got your back that twists, and then your pelvis twists. Then your feet change because it travels through your legs from the pelvis. Your whole body's damaged because you're not allowing your hand to work and grip and close. So things need to fit in the hands of a human being, because you can address anything and everything and all the things and whatever, but then if you continue to hold things in your hand that just don't fit in there, you're not really holding it. You're just kind of like supporting something and your hand's just underneath it, but it's other parts of your body that are like trying to support it and they can't, because everything has to play its role, or else you get those rotations and twists that I just discussed going on. And that's a big thing that's happening with people. But this is the thing about, I say boldly and truthfully, clothing is the only fix for human beings' problems. And it is, because this is the thing. If your clothing doesn't fit you, then you've got parts of your body already not working. And so then your hand is being affected from the other parts that are being affected from clothing. And so now you have to start with clothing. You have to, in everything that you could ever do, because you're never going to have a closed hand if your shoulder seams on your shirt are just too big, right? Too wide of seams, or shoulder seams sitting in any location that's not behind the shoulder's peak, right? The other end of the collarbone is what that is. And so you'll never even be able to close your hand, because you can sit there and train, there's stress balls or little springy things you can use for grip strengthening training, but we can't train the body to do anything ever. As I say, it's the truth. There's only one neutral to everything, and your workouts last week don't help you today unless you keep them up, because they won't help you next week unless you've done them today. So the body only has a normal, and that's actually the best place for it to be, is when you stop doing everything, right? Stop all the restriction, and there you go. You're going to function well. Yes, we have our own situations, but within those, that's the best place we can dwell, is just unaltered. So, yeah, the hands, they'll never close. I'm going to step backward and not move my body, other than I have to be able to walk to step backward. But like my hands, the position they're in, I noticed. Watch this. That's how I was standing, just like this. Because the hands need to be able to cock back. And, otherwise your fingers just hit into your legs. If your hands are just dangling down like this, then your fingers are hitting into your legs and causing a gap here and changing muscles up here and the whole body. We're focusing on the hands for this specific video. But that's what happens. So, because the neutral wrist, like this, is slightly back out from that pinky, okay? And so that's kind of as I was showing with my hands down here. And so our sleeve cuffs need to be off the hands, right? It is clothing. Train your hands all you want with whatever you want to call a training exercise, and it never will happen. You can't train the human body to do anything. It's designed by God. It can't be altered. Even if your intent is to benefit it, you can't. It's only what it is. Yeah. So the hands have to have things fit inside them, though. And the thing is, I have bigger hands than probably most all people. Some people have hands that are so much bigger than mine. But for the sake of, I am the founder of InTheImageClothingCompany, and I know how the body works very, 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 very well. Okay? And the point with saying that is why I'm saying it. And I'll explain it. Things that don't fit in my hands aren't going to fit in anybody's hands that are smaller than mine. And I've got decent sized hands, and I notice when I'm just holding things or doing things that are just commonly used on the earth in 2025, and again going forth, if it's anywhere similar or even larger, right? Yeah, right. Your hands need to close. We have these, right, like I call them quote unquote hand arches in the center here, and unless you can close all the way, you're not going to have those. And then it travels. As we said in the beginning, the hands are essentially the shoulder, and so, right, travels through the whole body. Everything has to play its role. So everything we do in our lives, if you can do anything about it to make whatever you're holding that's potentially too big for your hand be slightly smaller so that it fits inside of it, then there you go. Because there's things like occupations that people have, and that's good. And there's hobbies and, you know, sports that people play, and sometimes we're just holding things that don't fit in our hands, and then people are, you know, working on their shoulders and their back and stuff, and it's come from their hands because they're just being worked in an open position, and so everything is just changed throughout the entire body. Okay, so the body only works as a whole. We speak truths here at In the Image Clothing Company. We talk about things that will never change as well, right? Applies to every single human to ever live and always will. God designed it, we can't decide it. The human body, its natural function. And all 4 sides of the company as well, we do the same thing, right? We just talk about things as they are. So stick around if you'd like to. I like that. It sounds like a click to me, like, I don't know. I do that. I don't think about it. It just kind of happens sometimes. It's like there you go type of thing. So yeah, Earth Day. Check it out. Here it is. No joke. I did it that time, that sound. It just came out naturally. So yeah. There we go. All right, hands have to close, and I've shown things that allow that to be the case. At least I've shown it verbally by expressing the wordage that could relate to what needs to happen. But this is a big thing, right? Is the nails. Mine are 30. I replaced a couple sprinklers yesterday, and they're slightly longer than they would need to be, but nails do have to be to the very tips of our finger pad so that the pad can't roll over. And then we can cut them flat on the tips so that the fingers don't roll side to side. And then you can cut the corners rounded so that they're not just sharp and catching on things. But yeah, right, your hands have to close, and they won't normally at all if there's not nails, because that's why we have nails. And some people are just cutting them so much too short, and then, right, working on things like their shoulders and their rest of their body, and it's their hands. And it's not their hands' fault, it's what they've done to them by taking the nails and cutting them too short. So, closing of the hands, because, right, a neutral, relaxed wrist is like this. The thumb just kind of resting, the hands, see this rounding, this radius, like we talked about within guitars. I played nylon string guitars, but with a radius, right? Somewhere around half-sized. And yeah, when your hands are just relaxed, there should be this nice little bit of rounding. Everything should be nice and close together so that it's all just in line. The only way that it could ever actually work, right? So there you go. Fit things in your hands, man. And thank you. Today's the day that I said it was, and I've said it a couple times, but check out the other 3 sides to the company if you'd like to. In the Image Clothing Company Dogs is going to be huge. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. When I stand, and I showed it a minute ago, but that's what I do. If my hands are together, it's usually something like this, or something like this. Oh, there we go. I could feel like there was something more to say about this for the sake of this specific video. Never interlock your fingers. Look at my shoulders. I just discussed how the hands have to close, and the hands will only ever work in line. Never interlock your fingers. Your shoulders are taking a beating, and your core deactivates, and your pelvis goes anterior, your legs rotate external, and your feet arches collapse because you've just spread your fingers out of their only neutral. Okay? So, thank you.